reading and books were like crack. You know, reading a word that was written down hit like crack. Now, yeah, good luck.
I'm Gen Alpha. I've never lived a day without technology.
Technology is ruining education. The
Bro.
costs of student use of technology are far outweighing the benefits.
The kids of today are not motivated.
Y'all see that phantom scrolling?
Technology.
He thinks that his phone is there, and his muscle memory is kicking in to try to acquire lost dopamine. Literal addict. Literal addicts we're watching. I've seen fent folders that are more composed than this shit, bro. At least try to hide it.
Are far outweighing the benefits.
Oh
The
no.
kids of today are not motivated at all.
Oh no! Bro, fire him!
Even doing a fun book study, like they don't care.
And so these kids just have these devices in their hands that they think will get them through the rest of their life, and they're failing in life and in my class.
I told you this, it's the iPad mom's
Sure, I
fault.
do that
And I
in my-
made a very
in my
good point
class.
about this that I'm gonna repeat. The children who are on
More importantly,
iPads
they're failing my
control all of their inputs. They have total agency over what they see, when they see it, when they want to stop seeing it. It is instant gratification. And what you are asking of them when you are having them in front of a teacher is to invert their worldview. Now, not only be calm and collected, but listen. You are not the instructor, she's the instructor. You are no longer instructing the iPad to display content. You are being instructed to read, to write, and it's hard. It's hard to tell someone who has been the master of their universe the whole life that now they have to listen to a teacher.
These kids can't read. They can't decode. They have no vocabulary, no background knowledge. I've never seen anything like it.
I think the schooling system is not preparing people for a world that exists. You know, we haven't grasped.
I hate my team.
On another hand, though, I think AI will be so dominant that it won't even matter. Like in 10 or 15, 20 years maybe, we're all going to be floating around in pods that have us hooked up to heroin to keep us sedated while the AI overlords are like controlling the global economy. And our economy is based off of like mining Bitcoin and, you know, like we're going to harvest Mars for rare minerals and we'll all just be floating around doped up with AI girlfriends. None of it will really matter, so...
The fact that AI is going to be the biggest, most disruptive technology in the lives of our children.
My kids hopefully will never be smarter than AI.
A calculator doesn't mean we stop teaching math. So we have to do the same type of updating with artificial intelligence.
Unless we take personal accountability to teach and learn human skills, they will disappear.
How many people are like fully doing all their schoolwork?
Yeah, we're gonna have doctors
Nice,
who
play
are
left,
going
play
to
left.
use AI before they go on to do a surgery that they
80 on
were supposed to be
80.
qualified to do when they got the job to be a surgeon. For this generation of neurosurgeons, you're gonna leave worse than you went in. You're gonna walk in with a tumor and
The
leave
unbred.
3 more.
Like writing their papers, getting their degrees using AI. Like we're so doomed.
I can't believe
Students are facing academic
the
challenges
unbred.
we've never seen before. Like
I'll say-
40% of students across the nation can't read at a basic
Are
The
you
unbred.
fucking kidding me? It's 40%.
Yeah, unbred.
Literally retired.
Unbred.
They can't read.
Dead bread.
You want to take this, Kaka?
How can you not read?
And at this point,
It is 2025. That is a problem that cavemen had.
it's kind of an undeniable fact that kids are less than all right, as we see behavioral issues on the rise and cognitive efforts decline. Point being, Gen Alpha just can't catch a break, and no one can quite figure out why. But just as we thought it couldn't get worse, AI entered the scene. And now we have to deal with kids using ChatGPT to do their homework for them, meaning they don't even have to think for themselves anymore. As a parent with 2 littles entering the school age soon enough, I'm very nervous and confused about the schooling world and wonder what's even important in education anymore. Because in a modern world, is it really that bad for students to outgrow an education system designed 50 years ago? Well, that's what we're going to try and get to the...
But they're not outgrowing it. They're legitimately disabled. They don't have the ability to read. They're not surpassing the education system that was modeled. Like, I know that there's this notion of people who are visual learners, or they are, you know, they need the one-on-one teaching. They don't like the classroom setting. I get that these are all things, but none of that is going to be an excuse or a justification for not being able to read. Okay, I don't care how well you learn one-on-one opposed to classroom. You being able to read, that is a non-negotiable.
The bottom of today, how education got this bad, if technology is to blame, and if AI will be a redemption arc or fry every last brain cell Gen Alpha has left. So I was wondering where kids fall on this kids these days severity scale, because people have been raising their fists at the youth for generations now. We need look no further than the Offspring's 90s hit, The Kids Aren't Alright. So either they were ahead of their time, or kids are just made to be perpetually criticized. Well, we can start by looking at a recent headline: the elite college students who can't read books. Not the most promising place to start.
Yeah, I realized that school was cooked when I took a business class in college, and we spent 2 weeks talking about a handshake. When you're walking in the room to do business, you want to stand up straight, make sure that you're well groomed and you don't smell bad, and reach your hand out for a firm handshake. This is what I'm paying for? Yeah, the curriculum is cooked. AI is taking over. Everyone who's passing their classes now is cheating with AI. Nobody is a legit vanilla student who's not using mods. Everyone's hacking or cheating or bypassing. What is that shit? Lockdown browser, okay? Zoom meetings, people were falling asleep. Everyone's a lazy, retarded, entitled piece of shit. And Gen Alpha can't read. We are fucked.
Ian could be
and
flanking.
It's a question of how do we undo this? Not is it happening? If you need convincing that this
But
fucking
really,
is
how are you
happening,
so calm
because
after
you're under
that?
the impression that, well, you know, we thought Gen Z wouldn't be alright and they're turning out okay. We thought millennials would be bad and they're okay. If you have this sort of like idea
being that
because
calm
it's
is
all been okay
crazy.
before, that this time, even though it looks grim, that somehow it's gonna work out, I don't think you understand the severity of the problem. And I'm not here to do some doomer propaganda. I'm here to tell you that if you think it's bad, you're not crazy. If you think that it's uniquely
Do you want me
bad,
to sell
you're
it
on the
or
money.
But in this piece, Nicholas Dames, professor at Columbia University, shared his concerns, saying that over the past decade, students have become overwhelmed with reading and are bewildered by the thought that they have to finish multiple books in one semester. And it's not just that kids are struggling with reading novels, they don't know how to. One student even shared that she was never required to read an entire book in high school. But that is just the tip of the iceberg of the failing education system. So let's take it back all the way to elementary school.
Maybe condone going outside and make it cheaper to go to water parks, make it so the parents have free time to take them. Yeah, obviously there is an economic element to this, to where because the cost of taking your kids out to like the world is infinitely more expensive than it used to be. You know, the one-time cost of an iPad looks a lot more appealing and appetizing. I do think that, like, you know,
Wouldn't give up B to hold C long.
solution to the problem is oftentimes the one that has the most side effects, and so we're seeing the side effects. And
Yeah,
you guys tell me if it was worth it. All the iPad moms, how you feeling right about now?
Because this is an issue with many layers of challenges, where children are going through the early school years with foundational gaps and learning deficiencies. To start with reading, because it's the worst of them all, kids have never been so behind on reading levels. There's a reason why we see this trend of kids don't know how to read on TikTok. And it's not all talk. To repeat for emphasis, 40% of first grade students were well.
And it's crazy. Imagine people who read for fun now. You imagine telling that to a Gen Alpha person, they're gonna be like,
I was like, yeah, you're a sweat, bro.
You do this for fun? It's gonna be like you're self-harming. They're gonna literally classify it as a mental
Wanna pick
disorder
A-long
to
real
read for
quick?
pleasure when they grow up and take governmental power. When all the boomers die and Gen Alpha becomes old enough to hold positions of power and write the DSM-17, they're going to make enjoyment of reading a mental illness, and you're gonna be prescribed some shit for it.
Below grade.
You're gonna be prescribed a daily dose of scrolling.
Grade level in reading in 2020, compared with 27% in 2019.
I say this with the utmost, like...
Hold on, I want to hear the facts again. What was it? In 2020, 40% of first grade students and 35% of second grade students were scoring well below grade level on reading assessments, compared to with 27% and 29% the previous year. That means a school would need to offer intensive intervention to nearly 50% more students than before the pandemic. So the problem has like legit doubled.
10% of first grade students were well below grade level in reading in 2020, compared with 27% in 2019.
I say this with the utmost, like, love and patience that I can say it with. Y'all, the literacy rates right now are insane. They're crazy. Kids aren't reading. They're not recognizing letters. They're not recognizing
the kids for
letter
this.
sounds.
It's the parents'
This is going to
fault.
go much deeper than we think it's going to go. There's teachers in 5th grade
heck,
saying
you're,
that
like,
their students are reading
holding
on the
kids
second,
responsible
third.
for their own education. It's like they're kids.
Literacy rates are extremely low. The kids are frustrated because they cannot keep up with the work and In turn, they act out. 7-year-olds don't know their letter sounds. This is a village effort. Teachers can't do it alone. Please work on literacy at home with your babies. Yeah, I do think it starts from the home, but I think at school, there does have to be some updating around that curriculum. I do think that it's largely not the curriculum's fault, but I also think at a certain point, you do have to constantly be changing and evolving what you're asking of students and the way you're presenting it, right?
Enemy remaining.
Because it has to match what's happening in the world. Like, we don't see chalkboards anymore.
That can't recognize their letter sounds. I teach first grade.
So as you can see, this is a problem from day one of school for a lot of kids, where they aren't learning the foundations of reading, so they have nothing to build upon. As this first grade teacher shares, most years by the 3rd week of first grade, Heather Miller is working with her class on writing the beginning, middle, and end of simple words. This year, she had to backtrack all the way to the letter
No, bro, I just the stupidest things to that shit.
Being raised on iPads and the parents blaming teachers and not being hands-on in their academics. When I tell you I was absolutely flabbergasted at the interaction that I had with a child yesterday, I just have no words for it. I'm a bartender at a resort, and this family came up to the bar to order their food. One of the kids, who's about 8 or 9 years old, asked what flavor of Dippin' Dots we had, so I handed her a menu. This way she could read the flavors, and I was going to continue helping the rest of the party. When I tell you that I handed her the menu, and she looks at me dead in the eyes and goes, I can't read. I was left absolutely speechless for a few seconds. You're going to tell me around...
Dude, how?
Gonna fall back here.
2nd, 3rd grade. She can't read.
And the trends only get worse as we move into the high school.
3rd fucking grade. 3rd grade. I was reading Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Nate the Great, Captain Underpants. I had that shit all read, and they can't. They look at it like, I don't know what this is. That's insane. That is literally insane. Are you Amish?
School statistics, where in 2022, nearly 70% of 8th graders scored below proficiency.
By the way, this is a choice. This has nothing to do with disabilities, and this has nothing to do with mental health or mental illness. This is a complete choice, and it all comes down to lifestyle. It has to do with the rigor of the academics. It is all because we have gone completely numb, and we are giving up on being challenging towards children. We've stopped doing a level of intensive education that was previously held. We gave up. It's too soft. It's too simple. It's too milquetoast. Be on top of your kids. Ground them if they don't do their homework. Make sure they can read by 3rd grade. I honestly don't even think that, like, the expectation of a parent, obviously, you got at the bottom of the pyramid, the bare minimum, fed, not, being abused, has a comfortable bed, can sleep, looked after and kept safe, okay? Then you go one tier up, and it's like, can they read? Are they... Like, all of these things, like, I would say the literacy and all these things that are super basic are at the bottom of the pyramid, and we're just neglecting this stuff. Jesus.
And of those, 30% scored below basic. So that's how reading's going. But what about math? Well, it's also on
I suck at math.
Struggle bus. In spring 2023, just 56% of American 4th graders were performing on grade level in math, down from 69% in 2019.
Wow, that's nice.
Now, as we know, a lot went on in the 2019.
Let me see this. So we are at almost a 10%, more than a 10% decrease.
On from 69% in 2019. Now, as we know, a lot went on.
And we are very scared to actually punish. Yes, of course. Very soft. Very scared of actually punishing people, or kids, I should say, for not doing their work. Yeah, there needs to be some sort of consequences for the actions, or else the actions aren't going to be taken.
2020 school year to explain these numbers. And while school from home had a massive negative effect on kids' learning, it was not the initiator, but merely an amplifier. Kids are just behind in reading and math, and they're not catching up. As we see here, over time, scores in reading, and especially math, have generally trended upward or held steady. But over the last decade or so, student scores have leveled off rather than gaining. And I just want to take a moment to emphasize how big of a deal this is, because early education shapes a child's overall experience and success in school. Low scores in math and reading specifically are a major cause for concern, because these are the skills essential to success in nearly every other subject. When students struggle in these areas, it often leads to falling behind across
because science has a lot to do with math and reading, and it's like history is like, can you read and understand history? So it's a reading thing. And then science is like, a lot of science has to do with math and then also reading. So reading is like sort of very fundamental, and so is math, and then all the other subjects pull from how well you can read and how well you can do math. Yeah. And so it's fucked that these things are decreasing. And I would say that, listen, I'm not good at math. I'm a streamer, and so, you know, how serious you want to take me, I'm not going to judge you for that. But I can sit here and tell you that at the very least, we do have a problem. Walski, analysis, please. Do we have a problem? I think we might.
The entire curriculum.
Every year that I've ever taught band, at the beginning of the year, when you're dealing with beginner musicians, the first thing that you do is teach them how to read notes on a music staff. And usually what I see in my classes when students are having a hard time identifying the note names on the staff, most of the time these issues have to deal with them not understanding that there's a line space, alternating order.
I think with the music theory stuff, this shit was always super confusing to me because I ended up just learning this on my own in FL Studio, so. And I also think that maybe controversially, this isn't nearly as essential as it was made to be. Like this should not tank your GPA. Same thing with like gym. Why are you getting graded in gym?
One enemy remaining.
This past year, it was different. They weren't just having those typical issues that you would have to work through. A lot of these kids would not even use alphabet symbols. They would be making up symbols. They would not even know how to write A, B, C, D, E, F, G on their piece of paper. They would also have issues not knowing alphabetical order in general. So if they knew how to write A, B, C, D, E, F, G, they couldn't answer to me what letter would come after C in the alphabet. And I'm not just talking 1 or 2 kids in the class. I'm talking closer to 50%. We're talking about 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, kids that are about to go into high school.
Research shows if children are struggling to read at the end of 1st grade, they're likely to still be struggling as 4th graders. And in many states with 3rd grade reading gates in place, students could be at risk of getting held back if they haven't caught up within a few years. And so if you're not on
everyone's going to be a super senior. That's what I'm realizing. Every kid now is literally going to be a super senior. They're going to be 18-year-old 5th graders who just learned how to do fractions. That'll be fun. What's the denominator? I'm 25. That'll be great. They're going to be like having their geek bars in 3rd grade. That'll be a fun one. But the fucking 3rd grade will be really hot box. The teacher will want to die because who wants to explain fractions to 25-year-old deadbeats? That'll be great. That'll be great. I'm looking forward to that. Oh, man. So besides the pandemic, which is the obvious answer, and besides iPad moms, also another obvious answer, what is contributing to this? Are kids, like, drinking in 3rd grade? Are they hitting the bong in the geek bar in 3rd grade at the age of 10? Like, what else is happening here? Because I feel like we're missing some stuff. I don't know.
Say grade 2, then your likelihood of keeping up by the time you reach high school plummets. So now the question is, what the frick happened to education? All these stats of children falling behind are honestly so
Well, that was the question I literally just asked.
scary to hear as a parent and has really opened my eyes about how involved we need to be. My oldest Rook is entering kindergarten this fall, and so the importance of a well-rounded education has really just been on my mind, especially because we're going to be homeschooling, so his success literally falls on my shoulders. But with that, I've been scouring the web for resources to kickstart our education journey, and that's where today's partner comes in, IXL. IXL is an online learning program designed...
I literally worked with IXL. That's crazy. Damn, she got sponsored by a literal OG. Did you guys ever use IXL for like extra math? Wait, this is kind of a deep cut. This is almost like Kumon tier.
To help every child reach their academic potential through interactive practice for everything your child is learning, including math, language arts, science, and social studies. They are also one of the most trusted learning programs in the world, with curriculum built by educational experts. With Rook being preschool age, we are taking a slow approach to learning, but we still need to hit some milestones before the fall. Right now, I'm really enjoying the rhyming and patterns games with him, because those are something that are actually kind of hard to teach. Even though they seem like super obvious, for a kid, it's really easy to get stuck on matching.
We gotta
Spike planted.
What up, man?
So before we get into how technology specifically is changing school, we need to address the already prevalent issues in the school system. With that, I'm going to attempt to break down the problems in school, but that is a big task, especially when even teachers can't all agree on it, but I'll try my best. The first problem being kids aren't getting enough attention and the help they need in the classroom. I remember even when I was in grade school, class sizes were on the rise, and COVID just expedited that. Because as we know, we had a ton of teachers quitting during the 2020-2021 school year.
Do you think the kids are rowdier now? I mean, I feel like kids have always been rowdy, and then like my class when I was in elementary school, like it was a disaster. Like I would look at my friends when the teachers were mad, and I would just make like that stupid fucking face, and you know he would die laughing, and he would get in trouble. Like all these things were issues, but I wonder if it's worse now or if they're just dumber. They might just be dumber. Imagine it like being dumber and not even having fun. They're crazy today. Sheesh, bro, I don't even know. Actually, yeah, I feel like that might be true because when I was a camp counselor, the kids that I had were straight up insane. They were like demonic. So yeah, no, I can see it for sure.
For years of being told don't like teaching, just quit. Guess what teachers are doing? Quitting. In record numbers.
Some opting for early retirement during the height of the health crisis, while others left due to differing ideologies towards medicine. There was also a lot of burnout in juggling in-person teaching and remote teaching at the same time, leading some teachers to quit, and some simply just could no longer manage the behavioral issues of Gen Alpha. In fact, a survey in January 2021 found that nearly 1/4 of teachers indicated a desire to leave their jobs at the end of the school year, compared with an average national turnover rate of 16% pre-pandemic.
So teachers are pissed off. The kids are stupid. Dude, everything seems like it's terrible right now. Brandon juniors in my high school would walk up to me when I was in high school and make strange jokes. That's kind of cool. Kids may be dumber, but I think the problem is that they can't respect authority. That cannot punish them when they act out. Yeah, there's definitely this whole, I don't know if it's like wokeness, but I feel like the idea around education is that you have to always compromise with the students, you know? Like you have to barter with them. You know, it's like, it makes kids have the same power that teachers have. And I don't really think that that's how it should work.
And so class sizes have needed to increase because there's literally no other option when we already were dealing with
And then it's also like, how are you supposed to help
This
kids
is hard to do by
when all
yourself.
the kids are basically special ed? Like, being a special ed teacher was a separate thing, and now it's like every kid's special ed, so you didn't sign up for it.
No, it's not. It's not meant to be paid. It doesn't seem like.
But it's like they kind of need it now.
Like you have to control 2 chefs when you're playing solo.
35 years as a teacher, she taught special ed. Those kids were smarter than the rest of the rest of the school now. Yeah, dude, it's terrible.
And then a massive group of them up and left.
I've been a substitute teacher for nearly a year now, and I just want to say, if you are sending your kids to public school, please ensure that they are doing extra learning on the weekend, extra learning when they get home from school, because I've witnessed being in a classroom with over 45 kids, one teacher. Now, I don't understand how they're doing that on a day-to-day basis, but for me, that was just overwhelming.
But on top of the teacher shortage, the curriculum being taught has been problematic as well. If you've been watching for a while, you've heard me talk about the problem of phonics in early education and how children across the country have been taught to be poor readers for decades now. I won't go too in depth on it because, like I said, I've talked about it before, but it is still needed in this conversation.
Maybe homework isn't so bad. Well, yeah, like homework, we needed it. I mean, look back. Like, imagine you didn't do any homework.
So in the 90s, the standard for teaching reading to kids switched from phonics-based to what's called 3Qing. This is because new research was showing that kids learn reading better by being thrown into it head first rather than being taught how to actually sound out words and learn the rules, because that's too boring and old school. And so this new system essentially taught kids to read by memorizing sight words and looking for clues in the book to figure out words they don't know. The name 3Qing comes from the notion that readers use 3 different kinds of information or cues to identify words as they're reading. This means they're looking at the pictures for reference, guessing what word makes sense next in the sentence, and skipping over what you don't know and later you can't figure it out, which is like actually kind of crazy. Like, I don't know how everyone got on board with it. There must have been some kind of propaganda going on, because what happens when you run into a word with no context and no skills to actually decode that word?
And this is where I say that the game cannot be played without communication. Like Gecko, at the earliest vision of this angle, he should have saw the neon cross. Not say anything because this guy doesn't have a mic and and he died because he didn't say that anything. Or didn't say anything.
So then why are they not teaching phonics? Like, phonics matters a lot. Because it's like there are plenty of words that use letters in a way that is abnormal, and that will obviously be something you need to learn before decoding language, before decoding words, because like the word damn has a silent E at the end of it. What the fuck is a silent E? Does E make sound or not. Like, that's something that you need to teach the kid before that they can read. I feel like this is so simple. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I'm shocked. I'm shocked that the idea of this 3Q thing is caught on because, I mean, I'm a big believer of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just the idea that new research needed to be applied when if we're looking at the literacy rates increasing year over year, why change that? If it's working and it's actually improving year over year, just naturally with getting good at teaching something and refining it naturally over time, because that will happen over time without even the new research. People will be modifying the way that the working thing works just to get it to be a more refined process. I don't get why we changed this at all. What was the point of substituting it? You know?
They're expecting you to 3Q. So she prompts her on the 3Qs. Look at the picture, look for clues in the word or around the word, ask yourself if it makes sense. And Pepper can't do it, so we're left to decode. So I want everybody to try to sound out the word mother. Right? Spike down, B. Right? We can't blend that ever into the word mother. And that's because mother is not a decodable word for a kindergartner.
Yeah, because the TH is a the. The T loses the T sound. The H loses the H sound.
One enemy remaining.
Yeah, I mean, fucking, like, how do you explain that to a kid when they're being just thrown at, like, it just, why? Why are they, like, fucking up the education?
Also, in researching for this video, I realized that I think I was taught some of the 3Qing growing up, which I guess makes sense because I'm a 90s baby, so obviously. But when I read one of the cues being skip over words and come back to it later, it, like, unlocked a memory for me of struggling to read as a kid. But the short version of phonics history is that school districts were convinced of this new system on the basis that children have an inherent ability to learn reading, just like they have the ability to learn to walk and talk all on their own. And so millions of taxpayer dollars were thrown at curriculum materials for this theory of learning. And therefore, millions of children...
You know that's not true because, again, there's people who are in parts of the country today who are like 40 or 50 who can't read. Are we joking?
Children were reading on the basis of guessing words, whether they look...
I honestly don't even know if it's that even, like, that bad to homeschool kids these days. Like, homeschooling used to be this thing where you were like a homeschool kid. Like, it was a weird fucking thing. I honestly don't even know if it's, like, that bad of an alternative anymore. Because if this is what you're getting in public school, and then also you have to imagine public school has all of this garbage baked into the curriculum at higher levels, like high school or elementary, or middle school. I honestly don't even know if it's that bad of a deal. So who knows?
Right or sounded right. And the problem here, as you can guess, is that they aren't actually reading, they're faking it till they make it. And teachers didn't know any better, so they just went along with the new style and were told that it was going to make reading fun and easy for kids. Margaret Goldberg, a teacher in the Oakland Unified School District, was with a first grader named Robbie when he came to a page with a picture of a girl licking an ice cream cone and a dog licking a bone.